Jose? Is my phone?
There were only two guys, and one was named Mr. Molina. And there was a girl, Veronica, maybe, I don't know, they all mumbled names. Wow, what the heck he did her.
And that's the attorney right there.
Oh, yes, okay.
No,
Like,
this
what
is
can I run up
Kilmar's
and throw
attorney right
down?
here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. I recognize him.
My rider's inside, get like here.
Abrego Garcia's attorney. The guy right there in the suit.
Oh, yes. Oh, there it is.
Good morning. My name is Simon Sandoval Moschenberg. I'm a partner at the law firm Lori Astorio, and I'm one of the counsel for Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia in the civil matter, together with the law firm Quinn Emanuel. Today, yet again, for the umpteenth time, just as they've been doing since March, the government deployed its now very familiar strategy of sending lawyers into court who don't know anything about it. When we were last in court about 5.5 weeks ago on this case, the government represented that it was prepared to remove Mr. Abrego Garcia to Uganda, and that it would take about 2 weeks for them to sort of deal with the administrative process to determine and dispose of his claim of fear of removal to Uganda. They were then embarrassed when the government of Uganda went into the press and said, no, we actually never agreed to accept him, so they switched courses to Eswatini. But what was made very, very clear in court today is that they haven't actually done anything over the past 5.5 weeks. They've done nothing at all. Right? So at this point, it is crystal clear what we all knew from the beginning, which is two things. One, the decision to try to send Mr. Abrego Garcia across the Atlantic Ocean to seemingly random African countries when he's already received an offer of refugee status in Costa Rica is purely punitive. That's not permissible. The government does certainly have discretion when it comes to the choice of third country removals, but they can't do it in a punitive manner. And then the second thing is that his detention is now completely impermissible. The only lawful purpose for ICE to detain someone is to carry out their removal. Here, there's no removal to be carried out. They refuse to remove him to the country that he's designated, which is Costa Rica, and they're not taking any steps towards removing him to any other country. The judge was very frustrated with the government lawyer's inability to give her any straight answers, so she gave them a very short deadline of 48 hours to provide her with the answers that she needs, and then we're going to have an evidentiary hearing in court on Friday, at which time we are going to ask the court to order his immediate release from custody. Now, to be clear, we don't think that Mr. Abrego Garcia's deportation to Costa Rica is a just or proper outcome for this case. The just and proper outcome would be that he's allowed to live with his family, with his children, right here in Maryland, where he was on supervised release with a work permit for 6 years. That would be the just and proper outcome. But Mr. Abrego Garcia is willing to accept being removed to Costa Rica because when push comes to shove, his number one priority is that he not be sent back to El Salvador, where he was already tortured earlier this year and where he will undoubtedly be tortured again a second time. Costa Rica has offered that assurance, and so he's essentially willing to accept that assurance from Costa Rica. For the government to send him to Eswatini is clearly nothing more than an inconvenient way station on the way back to El Salvador. News reporting of the now 2 removal flights that there have been to Eswatini has been very clear that the government of Eswatini understands its role to be to incarcerate deportees for the limited period of time until it can send them back to their countries of origin. That can't happen to Kilmar Abrego Garcia. We're not going to allow it to happen to Kilmar Garcia. This court will not allow it to happen to Kilmar Abrego Garcia. So, we'll be back here on Friday. We'll be asking for his release. He'll he's subject to very strict conditions of release from the Middle District of Tennessee in the criminal case. But they cannot use ICE detention to hold him over until trial when the criminal court already prohibited that. And it's just crystal clear that that's all they're trying to do right now. They're trying to use ICE detention to hold him over until his criminal trial in January. If their interest was in actually deporting him from the United States, he would be in Costa Rica by now, right? Their interest instead is to use the immigration system to achieve what they haven't been able to achieve in the Middle District of Tennessee. So, you know, we will see what evidence they come up with within the next 48 hours. We will see if they actually bring a witness on Friday who actually knows what's going on, as the government ordered. They haven't really been doing that so far in this case. They've been sending witnesses who don't really know anything about anything. But we're going to ask for a ruling from the bench on Friday. Of course, we'll let you all know what happens.
Attorney, quick question,
Let
sir.
me just do that in Spanish.
Okay.
El día de hoy el gobierno, los abogados, el gobierno hizo la misma táctica que han estado haciendo desde marzo, que es mandar abogados a la corte que no saben nada de lo que está pasando. Estuvimos aquí hace 5 semanas y media y en ese entonces el abogado del gobierno dijo que están a punto de deportar al señor Abrego Garcia a Uganda y que necesitan por ahí 2 semanas para finalizar los trámites. Bueno, desde este entonces, Uganda ya dijo que no están de acuerdo en recibirlo, entonces cambiaron de Uganda a Eswatini, otro país en África, pero de todos modos, lo que se hizo claro en esta audiencia es que durante estas 5 semanas y media no han hecho absolutamente nada. Es muy obvio que el propósito de detener al señor Abrego García en este momento no es por fines de inmigración, es porque quieren detenerlo pendiente su juicio criminal en enero, pero eso no es permitido. El juez del juicio criminal ya ordenó su liberación bajo condiciones y no pueden utilizar la detención migratoria, el sistema migratorio, para conseguir lo que no pudieron conseguir ante la Corte Criminal en Tennessee. Kilmar Abrego García ha señalado, ha firmado un papel indicado que está dispuesto de ser deportado en este momento a Costa Rica. No es lo que quiere, no es justo, no es correcto, pero él está dispuesto de aceptarlo. ¿Por qué? Porque Costa Rica ya le ofreció promesas concretas de que él puede acoger del estatus de refugiado en aquel país y que no lo van a volver a deportar a El Salvador, cosa que para él realmente es su prioridad, que no lo vuelven a mandar a donde fue torturado anteriormente ya una vez este año. Entonces, ¿por qué el gobierno no lo está mandando? ¿Por qué no está en Costa Rica hoy? ¿Por qué no lo han mandado a Costa Rica? No hubo respuestas a esta pregunta. Pero la implicación obvia es que quieren utilizar la selección del país nuevamente para castigarlo por reivindicar sus derechos constitucionales. Eso no es permitido. Ahora, la jueza le dio al gobierno 2 días para someter cualquier otra evidencia que tienen en este caso, y va a haber una audiencia final en este caso el viernes, en el cual vamos a pedir a la jueza que ordene su liberación inmediata. Entonces, pues, les esperamos aquí el viernes.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Lydia Walter Rodriguez, and I'm the Chief of Organizing and Leadership. And as we continue to follow Kilmar's case, it is so important that we understand that every step and every single thing that happens in this case will define us as a nation. Our next generations are watching us right now, but all of us should be watching at home as well, because we are fighting for Kilmar, but we are also fighting for democracy. This political persecution that continues to happen to Kilmar, his wife Jennifer, and their family is an example to what could happen to any one of us. And I want to also uplift the words of his wife Jennifer, who could not be here today. She wants to give so much gratitude to all who have been fighting since day one for Kilmar and her family, and for all of those who continue to be in detention. She gives so much gratitude and love because through your actions and through our collective fight, we are continuing to keep the promise we made to Kilmar when he was unjustly detained, abducted, and separated from his family once again on August 25th in Baltimore. Mi nombre es Lidia Walter Rodríguez y soy la encargada de organizar y liderazgo con casa. Es sumamente importante que continuemos a ver este caso, porque ahorita mismo este caso y cada cosa que pasa contra la familia de Kilmar y su familia nos va a definir como una nación. No solamente estamos luchando por una persona, sino estamos luchando por la democracia de este país. Nuestras próximas generaciones nos están viendo. Y nosotros mismos en casa debemos continuar a escuchar cercanamente qué pasa en este caso. Porque este tipo de acoso político nos puede pasar a nosotros mismos y a ti también y a tu familia. Y quiero alzar de nuevo la voz y las palabras de Jennifer, que no pudo estar aquí el día de hoy. La esposa de Kilmar nos dice que les da tanta gratitud a todas las personas que han luchado día a día, alzado la voz y estado presente desde el primer día para luchar por Kilmar y todas las personas que siguen siendo detenidas por esta administración. Ella nos dice que aprecia todas nuestras acciones, pero que tenemos que entender que esas acciones están cumpliendo la promesa que le dimos a Kilmar el 25 de agosto, cuando de nuevo fue detenido y separado de sus hijos y su familia.
Simon, help me understand this. They said in court that the African country was the only one on the table. However, I believe you have filed a document showing a document from Costa Rica, perhaps the government colony, saying that they would accept him, that they would not send him to El Salvador. Can you explain that? It makes no sense.
I can't. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. There's a country that has expressed its willingness to accept him. It's a country that has guaranteed that it will not send him on to El Salvador. He has signed a document expressing his acceptance of being sent to that country. Why hasn't he been sent there? You're right, it makes no sense.
Can I follow
Sir-
up on that question for all the regular people who don't understand this, and the judge said she herself didn't? Why, how, what can she do in terms of this? She was clearly frustrated. The government either was unwilling or unable to answer her questions. If she has evidence that Costa Rica said, sure, we'll take them, can she order, okay, you can't send him anywhere but there? Because what's to prevent him from being sent there later?
Right now, what's on the table is whether he can remain detained by ICE while they're doing nothing at all, right? Or whether, because the only constitutionally permissible purpose for ICE detention is to effectuate a removal, if no removal is being effectuated, right? If the government has essentially chosen not to, right? The government is choosing not to remove him right now. And so therefore, our contention is he can't be detained anymore. And that's what the judge is going to be asked to decide on Friday.
So she's not allowed to say, you're not talking to this country, you can send him there. She has no jurisdiction over that.
That's certainly a claim raised in the case that the statute allows him to designate a country of removal. And there's only certain exceptions, and none of those exceptions really apply on the face of this case. But what the judge made clear today that she thinks is now ripe for decision is the claim regarding his ICE detention. She's not yet ready to decide claims around removal, but those are really two separate issues, right? One is he going to be removed? What process does he do before he's going to be removed? Where is he going to be removed? How's he going to be removed? But another question is just, can ICE continue to lock him up while this is all being figured out? And that latter question is the question that she's going to decide on Friday.
Just a quick clarification, sir.
Expressed a formal fear of removal to Eswatini?
He has, yes.
Just a quick clarification. In terms of when you ask for a ruling from the bench Friday, will that be for him to come home here in Maryland?
To be released from ICE custody on the conditions that were already imposed by the Middle District of Tennessee, which do include home confinement.
Okay, that'd be right here in Maryland?
Yes.
Okay.
Why do you think the government's not trying to effectuate its removal?
I think they like the headline of Eswatini, but quite clear that they're handling this case in a political manner in order to punish him and also, deter other people from standing up for their rights. It's been clear from the beginning that that's all that's happening here. I think that, the statements of Erez Rubeni, the whistleblower statements also make that very clear. That's not permissible, right? That's what the criminal system is for, right? If they think he needs to be punished for some crime that they allege that he committed, take that to the Middle District of Tennessee. You cannot use the immigration process to try to accomplish what you weren't allowed to accomplish by the criminal judge.
But why aren't they taking steps to remove the Eswatini? It seems that there's not being any steps taken, any evidence we can see, right?
You can ask them. We can hypothesize maybe that in fact they're not trying to remove them all. They just want to keep them locked up. That's one certainly hypothesis that one could have. Maybe Eswatini actually never agreed, just like Uganda never agreed. No, that's what they're going to have to answer. They're going to have to provide evidence on Wednesday and answer in court on Friday.
To be clear on that, did she order that they have witnesses come in with the information to take the stand under oath and detail what's going on?
That's right. She ordered that they identify the witness by Thursday and let the witness be in court on Friday.
May I ask, and I'm sorry again if this is I should have known this already. I couldn't help but notice he wasn't here, and I thought the same judge said he must stay within 50 miles of this courthouse.
200 miles.
Oh, within 200. Okay, so that place is just shy of 2. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry about that. Thanks.
You mentioned his parole being active until June of 2026. Can you clarify the connection between his parole and his detainment?
Yeah, I mean, when the government brought him back, when they finally, after so many months of stalling, they finally obeyed the unanimous order of the Supreme Court to bring him back to the United States, they granted him what's called parole, which is essentially a legal status document, and they granted it for 1 year. Now, the government can grant parole at its discretion and can revoke parole at its discretion, but for whatever reason they haven't yet. So as we speak, he's currently on a valid grant of parole, which means he's actually legally authorized to be in the United States through the beginning of June of 2026.
¿Qué evidencias tienen de que el gobierno actuó de manera vengativa?
El hecho de que no lo quieren deportar a un país que ya le ofreció estatus de refugiado, que ya le garantizó que no lo va a volver a deportar a El Salvador, que ha aceptado cientos de personas de terceros países. Estados Unidos ya ha deportado cientos de personas a Costa Rica, de todos los países del mundo. Ha deportado rusos, africanos, vietnamitas, gente de otros países de América Latina. Y en vez de haberlo deportado ya a Costa Rica, están peleando para poder deportarlo al otro lado del mar Atlántico. Y la jueza preguntó por qué y no tuvieron respuesta. Entonces, la implicación obvia es que lo están utilizando para castigarlo por haber reivindicado sus derechos constitucionales.
I have one more question, and Lydia, you may be the one, or you may both be the ones to answer this. You said clearly the world, the country is watching this case, but you said this could happen to any one of us. How many other people like Kilmar or Abrego Garcia are undergoing the same type of process concerning ICE and deportation? He can't be the only one.
Yeah, I mean, there have been well-publicized cases of third country deportation flights to South Sudan, to Ghana. There have now been 2 flights to Eswatini. The conditions that people are reporting are really horrible. But, for all of the cases of third country deportation flights to Africa that have been in the news, there are hundreds upon hundreds of Central Americans being deported to Mexico every week. And these are people, again, who won their immigration cases, won an order of protection from removal, who've been living, in this country for years and years with an order of supervision, legal permission to be in the United States, a legal work authorization that they've renewed over and over again, just like Mr. Abrego Garcia. And they're being deported to Mexico with no legal status in Mexico, right? So they then run the risk that Mexico is going to, any day, redeport them to the countries that they'd already won protection from. This is happening with great, great frequency these days.
Thank you. Thanks.
But again, the fact that instead of trying to deport him to Mexico like they've done with hundreds upon hundreds of Salvadorans, they're trying to deport him across the Atlantic Ocean is just further evidence evidence of the fact that this case is being handled in a political punitive manner instead of in the ordinary